Good afternoon, everyone. Today we're going to explore a fascinating aspect of music theory called musical modes. By the end of this lesson, you'll have a better understanding of what modes are and how they are used in medieval music. We'll be using a famous troubadour song called Conve la lauzeda mover as our reference. Let's get started. Please review the objective on the screen. Students will learn about musical modes, their historical context, and how they are applied in medieval music through the analysis of Conve la lauzeda mover. First, let me give you a bit of historical context. Conve la lauzeda mover is a song from the 12th century. It is a troubadour song. Troubadours were poet-musicians in medieval Europe who composed and performed songs about chivalry, courtly love, and various aspects of medieval life. What the mode? Explanation of modes. A mode is a type of scale with a unique pattern of intervals. The primary modes used in medieval music were Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, and Mixolydian. Unlike the major and minor scales we're familiar with today, modes were used extensively in medieval and Renaissance music. They are a series of 7 diatonic scales that are based on the major scale, although this can be argued because modes were used earlier than the major and minor scales. But these major and minor scales are helpful for reference because you can construct each of the modes by playing a major scale and then starting on a different scale degree and playing the same scale. For instance, the D Dorian mode is D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. We can think about it by using C as our major scale and starting on the second tone of that scale, which would be D. This creates a series of steps that is whole, half, whole, 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 half, whole. It's very similar to a minor scale. You have your flat third and flat seventh. But unlike the minor scale, you're going to have a raised sixth. So that raised sixth will stick out. Please note the comparison between the D major scale and the D Dorian mode. Instead of your F sharp, you have an F natural. Instead of your C sharp, you have a C natural. If this was a D minor scale, it would look very similar, but you would have that B flat. So it's sort of a cross. Let's listen. As we listen again, I want to draw your attention particularly to the 6th scale degree, which in the D Dorian mode is that B natural. See if you can note how it sticks out or stands out to our ear as we're expecting to hear a minor scale. Here's a few more examples so you can visualize this D Dorian scale. The first example is in bass clef. If you play a bass instrument or sing bass, this would be what it would look like. If you play it on the piano, you can note the blue notes below. There are no sharps and flats because, again, we're thinking of C as our major scale reference, but we're starting that scale on D. So the scale goes from D to D. If you play the guitar, if you play the guitar, it looks like this. Now, Let's listen and analyze what this scale looks like in a medieval song. I have a copy of the score for each of you. Please follow along as we listen to the song. Pay attention to the melody. We're going to identify the mode used in this song after listening. If you guessed that this song was in the D Dorian mode, you would be correct. A key indication of this is that the song both starts and ends on D. From there, we see there are no sharps or flats. We even have that natural sixth, that major sixth right here with the B. It's important not to focus too much on the rhythm right now, as you see there are no stems to this music. This was very common with these types of songs. The rhythm was more free-flowing with the text. So for right now, we're going to look mainly just at the pitches. Take a look at your score and circle all of the minor thirds and sevenths. So that would be the F naturals and the C naturals. With just those, we're thinking of something like a D minor scale. So we're going to circle all those thirds and sevenths. Now, put a square around all the major sixths, assuming D is our root. This would be all of the B naturals. You can see there's one in this very first line here. Let's look at the first key phrase in the score. I will play the melody for you. Notice how the melody follows the Dorian mode's pattern of intervals, starting with a minor third, the D to the F, and introducing the raised sixth toward the end of the phrase. Couple things to note before I play this is that if you have perfect pitch, you may have noticed that our recording started on a different note, but the intervals are the same. Also, I have a very primitive keyboard, so I'm playing off my iPad here. Here's that first phrase. To me, the first phrase sounds very normal, very much like a minor scale. Da, 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 da. But then we're introduced to this major sixth. Da, 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 da. If we were in regular D minor, please note the difference of how it would sound. So I'm going to play the same line with a B flat. I love how that B adds a sort of color and hopefulness or longing to the piece. And although we're not looking at the text, you can sort of get a feel for how that B natural adds the specific color. Let's talk about how the mode contributes to the song's overall mood and theme. The Dorian mode often gives a sense of solemnity and introspection. Can you list any other feelings that this song invokes? And as you list a few adjectives, I would say 3 to 5, I'm going to play the song once again so you can really feel the mood. Did you know that musical modes are not just a thing of the past? The Dorian mode, for example, is also used in rock, pop, jazz, and folk music. Here are some modern songs that use the Dorian mode. My personal favorite is listed first. It's called Moon Dance by Van Morrison, but my favorite version is by Michael Bublé. You can definitely check that one out. You might be familiar with What Would You Do with a Drunken Sailor? Dun, 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 dun. It kind of very much gets in your head. We have a couple Beatles songs, which your parents or grandparents might know. Dear Prudence and Eleanor Rigby. And there are some other examples for you to check out on YouTube on your own time to get familiar with this Dorian mode and the kind of songs that it is applicable to. To recap, today we learned about musical modes, specifically the Dorian mode, and how it is used in the medieval song Quand va la lazada mover. We discussed how the mode influences the mood of the song and drew connections to modern music. If you'd like to explore this concept further, here are a couple links. They link specifically to pages about the Dorian mode, but you can also explore other modes that we'll be looking at in future classes and get familiar with how they are used and their sequence of intervals and patterns. Until next class, though, thank you all for participating. Keep listening for modes in the music you encounter. Think about how they affect your listening experience. And I will see you all soon. Have a great week.